We are going to deliver on climate policies. We are going to reduce your cost of living. We are going to invest in our green economy. We will make sure you keep your freedom. And very important, we will not bow to the pressure of populists and Putin friends. We as Greens stand for where we are. Choose courage, choose green.
Bas Eickhout is a prominent leader within the Greens and European Free Alliance group in the European Parliament. This group brings together three main factions with similar ideologies from all across the EU. First, there's the European Greens, which includes parties like the German Greens, France's Europe Ecology, and the Swedish Green Party. They're all about green left-wing politics. Next is the European Free Alliance, representing ethnic minorities and separatist movements, including parties like Belgium's New Flemish Alliance and the Spanish Republican Left of Catalonia. And then there's Volt Europa, a pro-federalist pan-European party. They operate across multiple EU countries with a unified platform, making it easier for voters in any participating country to support Volt's consistent continent-wide agenda. Lastly, the group also includes independents, like the pirate parties, who sit with the Greens/EFA but aren't affiliated to a European party. Covering this group is super challenging though, as each party has their own manifesto without any shared priorities listed for the next election. In this video, we'll therefore focus on the Greens manifesto. Basically, if you vote for any of these parties on the screen, you're kind of voting for the Greens master plan for Europe, which we'll dive into now, starting with defense. The Greens support NATO and Ukraine, advocating for ongoing financial and military aid. They envision an EU security union that focuses on military interoperability and procurement, and enhanced cybersecurity to fight disinformation. They also push for reducing dependencies on authoritarian regimes and stopping arms exports to such leaders. In the Middle East, they advocate for renewed negotiations towards a two-state solution with secure, recognized borders. However, defense really doesn't seem to be the prominent issue for the European Greens. It really lacks detail in their manifesto, is not among their top 12 priorities, and is only briefly mentioned towards the end of their 46-page document. They do call for a feminist foreign policy though, that prioritizes gender equality and human security. A stance that at this moment really does raise some questions about its effectiveness against deterring aggressive international actors like Putin. Next is one of the hottest topics in Europe, migration. The Greens advocate for a humane asylum system that upholds human rights and offers protection to those in need. This includes people displaced by climate crises and LGBTQIA+ asylum seekers. They advocate for decentralized migration procedures and a mandatory relocation mechanism to distribute asylum responsibilities evenly across EU member states. The Greens advocate for an EU-funded search and rescue mission in the Mediterranean to save lives at sea. They also want to enhance oversight of Frontex, the EU's border security organization, to ensure humane and ethical practices are upheld. They're also against unethical migration agreements with dictatorial regimes, such as the one of Tunisia, insisting any migration cooperation must include thorough human rights assessments. Furthermore, the Greens champion family reunification, work opportunities, and access to education and language training for asylum seekers. And they're committed to combating human smuggling networks. And then there's the big one, climate change and energy.
Because EPP and the Liberals are wrong when they say that the Green Deal is something that goes against our economy. The Green Deal is going to be the basis of a future economy that is built within the boundaries of this planet, that is built on social justice, and that is the kind of economy that we are going to fight for in this election campaign.
Climate change is the Greens' top priority. They aim to exceed the 55% reduction in emissions target in 2030 and want to achieve full climate neutrality by 2040. They believe these efforts will not only grant independence from authoritarian regimes, but also create 2 million new jobs. Key steps include phasing out fossil fuels by 2040 and transition entirely to renewable energy, such as solar, wind, water, and geothermal sources. They explicitly exclude nuclear power, which they do not view as renewable. The Greens want to dedicate at least 10% of the EU budget to biodiversity from 2026 onwards. They also aim to transform agriculture to support local production, ensure fair income for farmers, and protect them from unfair competition from international competitors. Additionally, they want to fight animal cruelty. In transportation, the Greens propose a European climate ticket to unify and subsidize public transport across the EU. It really goes without saying that the Greens have the most comprehensive plans for addressing climate change. And if you want more detail, there's much more in the manifesto. Next up is economy.
Because we Greens, we are clear. We want industry in Europe, a thriving, strong industry, and an EU that can compete globally with the US and China. An industry that builds our windmills, our trains, and our chips. An industry that makes us strong and independent from autocrats and dictators like Vladimir Putin all around the world. An industry that safeguards our security. We want an industry that puts the bread on the table for millions of Europeans without polluting air or water.
The Greens propose a substantial investment plan of at least 200 billion euros annually to benefit the European people, the planet, and the economy. This will help achieve climate targets, such as installing solar panels on all suitable roofs and creating millions of quality jobs in construction, energy, and transport sectors. The Greens want an EU-wide minimum income to prevent poverty and want to make European unemployment insurance a permanent safety net. They recognize trade unions as crucial partners in securing higher wages and better working conditions, and vow to support their rights and democratic functions. Regarding taxation, the Greens have a lot of plans. They advocate for an economic model that prioritizes people and the environment over corporations and the ultra-rich. This involves reforming the tax system to introduce a minimum tax on capital gains, an EU-wide wealth tax, ending tax avoidance by multinationals, and a financial transaction tax. These measures are intended to lessen the tax burdens on workers. Now, when it comes to social issues, the Greens are committed to protect the rights of women, LGBTQIA+ individuals, and racialized groups. They want to dismantle what they call the patriarchy and ensure everyone has control over their own bodies, with access to necessary healthcare and the right to choose their gender. Additionally, the Greens push for wage equality, ensuring equal pay for equal work for all genders across all areas of employment and public life. Now finally, what about EU reform and enlargement? The European Greens support the EU, but acknowledge its shortcomings and are pushing for significant reforms. They advocate for a shift towards a more federal structure by increasing the powers of the European Parliament, expanding the EU budget, and enhancing EU authority in areas like health, tax, and social protection. They propose abolishing national vetoes in foreign policy, tax matters, and the use of Article 7, where a member state's voting rights can be suspended if it breaches the rule of law. This makes me think that this might have something to do with Hungary. Furthermore, the Greens believe the President of the European Commission should be elected by the European Parliament, rather than appointed by national leaders. And lastly, the Greens are very supportive of the enlargement of the EU.
We are now at the crossroad of continuing the Green Deal or go back to a fossil standstill. For democracy or autocracy. We are also for a strong Europe or a divided Europe. Really, these elections matter massively, and we need you again to fight for a strong Europe, to fight for a Europe that delivers on green and social policies, and a strong Europe that protects us.
And that's an overview of the Greens' plans for Europe. Craving more detail? Then dive into their very detailed manifesto in the description. We are super excited to bring you a series of 7 videos, each dedicated to a different political group in the European Parliament. These videos are designed to equip you with the knowledge you need to vote confidently. For instance, you can start by exploring the liberal pro-EU Renew Europe here, or delve into the right-wing Eurosceptic ECR here. And please subscribe to our channel now to stay updated, as we release more EU election content. And if you're passionate about helping us spread knowledge on the EU, think about joining our Patreon community. Until next time.